Okay, so on Allen, here's a question I want to ask, and we'll get some more phone calls here. Joe, when I go on, and I'm sure you get phone calls and texts like, "Hey, can you come on and can you talk about the game?" Blah blah blah.
I'll be on in Indy today, I think.
There you go, Indianapolis. I mean, the league wants to talk about the game.
Yep.
And going on in Kansas City or wherever, Oklahoma City, I think I'm going on today, or that was yesterday. I don't know. I've got a bunch on my calendar. I got a question, and it's the kind of question about Allen you'd get from an outsider, which is, are there any Bills fans out there that think about him? Hey, buddy, it's time to come through finally. It's time to win. Kind of putting him under the microscope about why hasn't he won it. And my answer was no, there aren't any. There are almost none. Because don't we know, like this is the horse you're riding with for 8 more years until he doesn't play anymore. There's absolutely no thought of, does he have what it takes to win one? Right?
None.
Do you know any person in your life that thinks he will let them down in the big moment? Because I don't. I think that McDermott wears 100% of that kind of emotion from people. That the belief is that Allen probably should have won by now, and no, there's absolutely nothing in that regard for Allen from Bills fans. Is my answer to them.
I would agree. I don't think. I think that 13-second game does a lot for him on that front, right? Like 2 game-winning drives in the final minute and a half goes a long way. Like he showed us, I could do it, and then I could do it again, and that's in clutch time. And how many times has that really been tested in the playoffs since where he couldn't get the job done? All right, like the AFC Championship against Kansas City, it wasn't tested. I guess you could say last year would have been maybe the first time, really, right? Like that he didn't get the job done because he got hit as he threw it to Shakir. He didn't take Diggs over the middle. But even that one...
Even then, Diggs had the drop, and then Bass missed the kick.
It gets chalked up to the Diggs drop, I think, more than... Because in Allen's defense, he did put the ball right on him. And as Ben Baldwin pointed out, right before that, he had put the ball on Trent Sherfield 45 yards down the field and hit him in the bicep and was dropped. So he made 2 spectacular downfield throws that should have put them in position to score, and his guys dropped the ball. So, like, again, it's he did his part. He did his part. And I just don't think there's a lot of questions about him doing it if it comes down to it.
And in big moments, whether it's regular season, and last year's run, I think, does a lot of this too, right? Last year, they kind of needed to win out, and they did. And in big games against the Chiefs, he's won games in Arrowhead to win a game in Detroit. I mean, he's come through for them a million times. So I don't think there's any sort of belief that he's falling short. Even if, like you said, even if that throw to Shakir or you want something better on the third down play, like it's just... Yeah. None of that stuff really sticks because I think there's an overarching kind of belief that he's fine. Not worried about him. We got other things to worry about. We'll get some more phone calls in on this as well. 803-0550. And do you have plans yet? I got a couple of funny tweets to run through on that. Do you know what you're doing for this game? Because I'm still kind of struggling with it. I just know that I've got to not be near my kids because sometimes they get, my daughter especially, she gets scared if I yell at the TV. Like, in a good way. If I cheer loudly, she kind of isn't happy about that. So, I don't know. I got to figure something out. Rob in Connecticut. Rob, you're up next. Hey, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Jeremy. How are you doing today? And I don't know Mike from Connecticut, by the way, but I know exactly what you're talking about. The Bills backers in Milford. It's about 15 minutes away from me. But as far as I stay home, I can't be around people. I listen to the radio, and I was just laughing because you yell. My fiance yells more than I do. I don't even yell during the games. I don't say a word, but she scares me. She's the one that is very boisterous. But I just wanted to let you guys know that this year, for me, it just feels different. It feels right. It just feels right. And when you're talking about Josh, it's like the pieces around him everybody blends so well together. And one of the things I'm thinking about also is if we get to the show, I will be so happy for Sal I mean, to be standing on the sideline at the Super Bowl would be, like, unexplainable. And I think about Sal all the time. And, the other thing I want to let you guys know is ever since the 49ers game, I've been bowling every Sunday morning just to take my mind away from the game until it's time.
Routine?
And don't ask me how I do it. I am blind, but, like, I can only see to a certain degree, so I use the gutters as its contrast. The gutters are dark and the lane is light. And I've been bowling. I've been killing it. I've been beating guys that can see. They don't understand how it happens. So every morning, Sunday morning, since the 49er game, I've been bowling, and, I'm doing really well. So leave no doubts is what I've been saying all year long. So don't doubt yourself. I think we'll be fine. And hopefully I hear about, I won't be able to see it, but hopefully I hear about Taylor Swift pouting in her suite instead of jumping around. So keep doing what you guys are doing. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. You've got a lot of people that have confidence and feel like it feels different this year, and I'm not saying I don't feel that. I would like to borrow confidence. I don't know, Joe. I don't walk around with like, oh, it feels like it. I feel like you're just, when you get to the postseason, especially last week I felt this way, and this week I feel this way too, is, well, I see which way the coin toss goes. Like I hope they win the coin toss. Not an actual coin toss, but a game like this is close and could swing on any number of plays or players.
Yeah. Isn't it feel different because of the mental exercise from before the year of, I would just take getting in the playoffs? Like
maybe.
Because that's a little 0506 Sabery, just way, not as much. I mean, that was like what, out of nowhere, was maybe going to be the worst team in the league, and then they were in the conference finals. This was, you might just be a playoff team, and then you're in the AFC Championship. So, like, I don't know. Like, I think for some people that, like, I don't really think, for me, it does feel that different. Like, I think early in the year maybe it did a little bit, but I feel the exact same that I have in all of these playoff runs. But for those that are saying they feel different, I feel like that's an exercise in, last year, year before, the whole year, the whole calendar year, not just a couple of months that the season take place. It is Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. Yeah. And this year it was more, let's see what they are. Maybe they take a step back. Would you take just getting in as a wild card and seeing what happens? Like, I think the setup to the year was different, so maybe some people are still feeling that.
Well, that's where, a changeover on the roster and new faces and new names are refreshing. And Brandon Beane talks about how when they moved on from a bunch of players and got new guys, that some of the emotional baggage would have been shed, and that probably extends to the fans as well. That you have a new group here on a lot of levels, and it's James Cook and Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper and Khalil Shakir that are your big names on offense, and the offensive line, and people know Alec Anderson, right? Like, it's just it's a different look to the way they play. The one thing I would say about that, though, I want to push back, and I thought of a good way to push back on the idea of house money or, hey, they weren't supposed to be this good. And the best way to do it is to talk about Joe Brady. So Joe Brady's about to get a second interview, or he's going to interview with the Saints next week.
The Saints want him to.
Okay.
It's not out that Brady will do it, but the Saints want him to.
Okay, so here's Brady. He still could get the job with the Saints. He still could get the job with the Jaguars. And what you've got right here with Brady and Allen, whatever part of it you like, if you like the balance, if you like the style of the offense with yak yards, if you like that he's not taking sacks, if you like that he's not turning the ball over, all of that together, Joe, is Brady and Allen working in concert beautifully. And if he leaves after 1 year, then best of luck to him. Thank you for the job you did. But the window, of course, doesn't close. Windows for Super Bowl teams, it's not like we're not day trading stocks here. The window's open as long as Allen's the quarterback. However, last time they got this far, what did we think? Well, come on. Everything's just the world's our oyster. Everything's going to start going great for them. And it took 4 more years just to get back to this game. Now, if they lose and then Brady leaves and it takes 4 more years to get back because there's always things popping up, whether it's a Ken Dorsey offensive experiment, which was okay but had some flaws and knocked them down a little bit, or if it's in 1 year, it's injuries, right? You never know how the year's actually going to go. You're here in this moment. I don't think you can really treat it as anything other than kind of Super Bowl or bust in the moment, because you might be going through an offensive change next year. What if Davis Webb is your offensive coordinator because his name has come up a couple times, and now I'm into another transition. It's just a different transition, right? Isn't every year having some degree of transition? And if the transition is going to be a new offensive coordinator, well, now I've got a lot of variables that are in that. So Brady as a potential candidate as a coach somewhere else, to me, kind of makes me lock further in on, no, you've got a really good thing with these two. We hope he stays, but if he doesn't, that could change the dynamics, and maybe, I don't know, maybe everything doesn't go perfectly next year.
No, right? I mean, their last offensive coordinator, everything didn't go perfect, right? It was sloppy, and I think the things he wanted to do with the offense, he couldn't, right? And Brady, like, what's Brady's skill set? What is he great at? Like, or what is he at least better at than his predecessor? Like, he's done a better job at getting these yak plays to work. I think the thing that I noticed from Brady that maybe sets him apart from other coordinators in the league is how good he is at getting running backs open. Like, on route concepts, whether it's down the field even, because really the Bills don't run a lot of screens to their running backs. I don't know that the next guy will just be able to do some of these things. Like, maybe, right? Like, we didn't know that Brady would.
No, that's right.
When during this year did we feel like, okay, they've got a guy. Like, this guy knows what he's doing. This is working. They're going to work in concert together. Like, I would say for the first month of the year, I was still saying,
for sure.
I think it's going well, but it wasn't until maybe late in the year even I'm like, oh no, this guy's a good coordinator.
Right. We used to joke about, like, what's his witch factor, right? Is he a witch or not? And
right.
early in the season, before Cooper showed up, we wondered if they could win throwing the ball, and then Cooper showed up, and the dynamic just kind of all fell into place. And that's not just Cooper. That's the backs. That's Keon Coleman. That's a lot of things. So, yeah.
It's a comfort that, the Chiefs don't have to deal with, and I don't know how you find this with an offensive guy. Maybe you have to think about age or something like that. Because the Chiefs have kind of fallen into stability on both sides that is kind of it's kind of rare, right? Like, when you win and you don't have to really ever worry about your play caller on either side of the ball leaving. Yeah. Again, like, part of that, though, is Steve Spagnuolo. Like, sure, he's a defensive mind, but he's also a failed head coach before, and he's at an age where he just doesn't get really any looks for a head coach job. So year to year to year, as long as Andy Reid wants to work and doesn't want to retire, like, if you're in Kansas City, you never have to worry about this. Ever have to worry about this. And that would be nice to have here, but that's Brady's going to get a job eventually. Like, if this continues to work, even if it's not this year, Brady will get a job. How do you replicate that? It's a lot tougher, right? Because what do you need? You might need, if you really care about it in the first place, about, can I just find a coordinator that's just going to be here for the long haul? Like, the long haul, I don't have to worry about this.
The answer to who this name is.
You need a failed head coach, right?
Well, it's Josh McDaniels. I'm not saying the Bills need that guy.
Not specifically.
But that's one thing about this. We were going to get to the division at some point. So the Patriots just hired Mike Vrabel, and Josh McDaniels is the offensive coordinator. He has had success as an offensive coordinator, and guess what? He is never getting a head coach job again.
Yeah, exactly. He will never
right?
be. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you need somebody that's really good at it, that went somewhere and they failed maybe twice, and now Drake May has an offensive coordinator that if it does work for them, that guy will never leave. He will just never leave.
And he can't be too good. Well, too good, and you wouldn't have to worry about it anyway. Like, Sean Payton, if he were to get fired in a couple of years by Denver, is not going to come be your offensive coordinator.
Right.
So he can't have pedigree at the same time. Like, yeah. Norv Turner 10 years ago.
Right. It's just interesting to think about it in terms of, these windows, and there's so many moving parts and pieces, and players come and go, and coordinators and coaches come and go. Look at the Lions. They just lost Ben Johnson. Like, the Lions window, does it close? Does it open? But that's a big transition for them, because the wizard of their offense is now in their own division. So, Dan Campbell, not this year, but 2 years ago, said, I don't know when we'll be back again. It's hard to get this far. And sure enough, the next year, they go out earlier and they lose the Wizard. So things are always changing. And in this spot, you just can't be anything but. I don't think you can be anything but. You got to finish the job when you're this close. 803-0550 and 1-888-550-2550. Let's get to Jimmy in Miami. Hey, Jimmy, good morning.
Hey, buenos dias, guys. Hey, on Monday, at the end of the show, Jeremy, you said something about flopping, about Mahomes and flopping, and how it's making a joke, a travesty of officiating, and how these games are turning out in favor of not the whole game, but as you know, a game a lot of times is won in the margins, and it could be something as simple as Mahomes flopping where he gets a 15-yard penalty. It could change the outcome of the game. It's not always like Josh throwing for 350 yards or Cook running for 150 yards. It could be a strip sack that changes the outcome of the game. But this flopping, it's just driving me crazy, and it's making a travesty of officiating. And, like, for instance, one of Mahomes' top one out of 10 flops is when let's say he's under pressure. He escapes the pocket. Now he's running towards the sideline. He gets towards the sideline, and he slows down right when he gets to the sideline. And, of course, the defender is going to push him. And he does this amazing flying belly flop where a referee, right away throws a flag. Or he's running, he's scrambling, and he slides too late. And then, it's hard for a defender to stop. If you're a quarterback and you're sliding too late and you get hit, it shouldn't be a penalty.
Yeah.
Sometimes these, I just think it's getting out of hand. And I just have one question. Does the NFL or does some official that's in charge of these officials of the game, at the end of the game, do they sit down with these guys and go over the film and say, look, this is not a penalty. You're changing the outcome of a game right here because you gave the team a 15-yard penalty.
These guys, Jimmy, these guys definitely get reviewed, and based on their scores, that's who they pick to do these playoff games and Super Bowls. Is if you have the best crew of the year continues working. On the flopping point, I do love this conversation. I think it is tied into a talk we had a couple weeks ago about Trevor Lawrence when he slid and got concussed, and they suspended the Texans defender, and I thought that was a bogus slide. Right now, quarterbacks are, and listen, we know Josh does this, so we can put that over here for a moment because we're talking about the actual nature of the game and the spirit of the game. So I think Josh would just adjust. Josh is out there looking for calls the same way Mahomes is. Josh is out there flopping occasionally, yes. I mean, he's trying to do what he can to help his team. And as long as it's not actually a penalty, there's no specific penalty for flopping. I'm reading an article about this where, yes, an official could call it, but there's not really a call for flopping. You could call unsportsmanlike conduct. In the NBA, in the NHL, there are embellishment penalties. In the Premier League, in soccer around the world, there is a penalty for embellishing. Will the NFL put that penalty in place? I want to say yes, it would be good to do it, but I'm also afraid of it because I can't imagine your quarterback gets hit and he gets flagged. What would happen, Joe? How does a diving call get received in the NHL? Right? Are you kidding me? He got tripped. What are you saying? He embellished that play. You wiped out a penalty, which was really a penalty. I don't know what the right answer is in terms of the way forward, but it is definitely tied to quarterbacks weaponizing personal fouls. They are doing that on purpose. Allen at the sideline, I think Allen is looking for a hit there. Mahomes at the sideline throws himself to the ground. They are weaponizing the officials to their advantage when they play the position that is the most protected as it is, right? You can't touch their head. You can't touch their knees. You can't burp them against the ground or whatever. You can't land your weight on them. It's hard enough to tackle these guys as it is. And now when they go to the sideline, I know that Mahomes is very, very good at this. And, yes, I know that Allen is also very good at this. I don't know that I'm ready to say we should sign up for flopping as a penalty. I'd like to find some ground in between, Maybe it's as simple as
fines, maybe.
Maybe fines. Maybe it's as simple as No, I can't do that.
Fines that also aren't like $2,500 or something that like doesn't
I
even
was about
matter
to say,
to
like,
quarterbacks.
are we going to review roughing the passer calls? I can't stand another review in another 5 minutes of Gene's territory telling me what he thinks he saw. So I don't want to sign up for more reviews. But I do think Mahomes last week legitimately made the game look stupid. Like, he had Troy Aikman mocking him during the broadcast.
Yep.
And he deserved it because he threw himself to the ground trying to get a penalty. So I don't know what the answer is. I don't want my league's best players making a mockery of my officiating.
I think the answer is maybe already somewhat being executed. Like, they are, I think, trying to look for that. And if you do it, we're not calling the penalty on the opponent. Like, Mahomes, by the letter of the law, he's moving he's moving to go out of bounds, and he gets hit and thrown out of bounds. Like, the ref didn't call a flag there because why? He I'm sure saw Mahomes. I saw you slow down. I saw you try to draw the penalty. I'm not calling it. And that's happened this year. Kenny Pickett on a third down in like 20 slid with like 8 yards to go. This was when they played the Commanders in the regular season late. Hurts was injured. And Pickett slides, but he waits. He waits until the defender gets there. Like, totally trying to draw it. It was so obvious. I'm just waiting till this defender gets close to me. Then I'm going to do a quick slide. And, penalty. And they did throw a flag. Then they met. They talked about it. Or maybe it was somebody from upstairs that told the refs, guys, Pickett embellished that, or Pickett tried to draw that. They picked up the flag. Like, to me, that's how you do it.
So this is the Sky Judge's realm.
It's Sky Judge. Sky Judge buzzes in and says, "You're picking up that flag because that quarterback drew that on purpose, and there's nothing the defender could do."
The only problem there is if the quarterback has nothing to lose, there's no reason to stop doing it. If there's only something to gain, worst case, it gets picked up. Best case, I get 15 yards. I need something where I'm disincentivized from doing